Oh, morning, Alexandra from Stoke, and Dee from Southend. Great to have you with us. So I've just opened the poll up there. That's just to get an idea of how confident you are with social media, and hopefully you'll feel more confident by the end of the session. It's great to have you all with us, and thanks for making the time to come. Morning, Ron. We know social media is one of those things that's quite a minefield, so hopefully we'll unpick some of it. And this is a training, so we'll do an advanced one next week, but we just wanted to start with the foundations. Anyway,
Yes,
I'm going to start there, aren't I? So, okay, well, it's 3 minutes past 11. We've got nearly 50 people. We were expecting a few more.
Should we give it one more minute, or?
Yeah, let's give it another minute, just in case. I think a couple of people are having trouble getting on to do with their Wi-Fi.
I hope not many others are relying on Virgin Media, like I am.
Yeah, so please fill in the poll if you can give your answer, and then we'll do another one at the end. It's quite fun getting to
Hello to Tracy,
learn.
Mark, Marie, Ron, BRSSTJ4, Marilyn, Lauren, welcome, Denny.
And yes, we are recording this, so we will be able to share it. Lots of people couldn't make it today, so we'll be able to share it later on. So great, well, I'll end the poll now. So Michael, you're the new Joe Wicks of Shared Lives. That's hilarious. Yeah, you're only supposed to see the three of us. That's right. So this is a webinar. We'll open up the conversation after it, but we've got lots that we want to go through. So with nearly 60 people on the call, it's easier if we have a one-way output. And if you've got any questions, then Nick will be on the chat, and we'll be able to answer them as we go through. So I'll end the polling now, and then we can begin properly. So thank you all for coming. I'm Phoebe Rowell, I'm the Communications Manager at Shared Lives Plus. Apologies for the awful background wallpaper, but this is the benefit of Zoom, isn't it? You can see into everyone's houses, so it's a little bit more personal, which is nice. Anyway, so we've got Michael here who's leading the training this morning, and Nick who's in our communications team as well. So you'll probably have seen tons of emails from us over the last couple of months, especially. Yeah, so Michael, so I suppose this training is in preparation for Shared Lives Week. We're often getting questions from scheme workers about how to use social media, and we've done bits and bobs of training, but given that Shared Lives Week is going to be completely online this year, we thought it'd be worth putting in a bit of time with you to help us make the biggest splash we can ever in 2020 to get Shared Lives up on the radar of everybody on Facebook and Twitter, and not only of all the decision makers, and show what lovely outcomes Shared Lives has, but also to thank carers and recognise all the work that they've been doing, and to recruit new ones where we can. So that's the reason for this training. And as I said, we'll have this basic one, and then we'll do an advanced one, well, intermediate one, and then advanced ones later on if we need them. So over to you, Michael.
Hello, and welcome everybody. It's great and slightly daunting to have so many people on, but this is what we want. So yeah, as Phoebe said, this is all about boosting your skills to be able to reach out and engage primarily your Shared Lives carers during Shared Lives Week digitally given that we can't have physical celebrations this year and we can't send out a big bulk load of physical promotional marketing collateral. So just to say, before we start, we've got a very comprehensive resource that accompanies this webinar, which we'll be making available shortly after. And that includes probably a lot more of the theory that I'm going to be able to have time to talk about now. So that will be something that you can consult back and look back over, and it will include all the step-by-step instructions that I'm going to hopefully go through with you in real time now around setting up a page, setting up profiles, creating posts, sharing posts, and creating images. So the resource and the webinar are designed to provide all Shared Lives schemes with a basic understanding of what social media is, how it works, and the tools and skills to establish a social media presence and begin to think about ways for you to grow and engage your following. So I think it's worth just recapping briefly on what social media is, why it's important for us to use and why we should use it, and also maybe think about some reasons why, not why we shouldn't use it, but some of the pitfalls and just some of the things that you need to keep in mind. So, as I'm sure you all know, social media are simply any websites or applications or platforms that enable users to create, share, and consume content. Content being the fancy internet word for words, messages, images, audio, and music, and crucially also to be able to interact with one another. The reason it's a big deal, again, this is probably fairly obvious to many people, but almost 3 billion people globally used social media in some form of last year, and that's nearly 45% of the world's population. In Britain, over 40 million people use it and spend on average at least 40 minutes per day using it, although I think it's probably higher. Obviously, during COVID-19, digital ways of connecting with people and sharing and consuming information have become even more important. And if we weren't an extremely online society beforehand, then we're certainly becoming one now. And it's difficult to imagine any organization now really being successful without having a strong social media presence. The ways in which social media differ, well, the primary way that it differs from legacy media like TV, radio, newspapers, is that they are all pretty asymmetric, and that means that they involve a single or small number of voices speaking out from a platform of relative power and reach to a large number of passive consumers of information, whereas social media, in theory at least, creates a more egalitarian media playing field with everyone able to have a platform and a voice. This is important, especially for Shared Lives, because we're a person-centered sector, we're community-based, and the strength of Shared Lives often and primarily probably lies in open and good communication between Shared Lives carers, people they support, schemes, and the wider community. The reasons why we should use it, as well as the aforementioned, as from a really simple perspective, it's just another way of connecting with more people. It's another tool in your arsenal and another chance to reach people, and a couple of extra percentage points likeliness of reaching all your network with the messages that you want to send out. So sending letters, newsletters, and texts might reach 3/4 of the people that you want to reach, but putting stuff out on social media could bring that up to kind of 5/6 or just bump up those extra percentage points. The other kind of, and the most important thing I think, is that on social media it allows you to really build a community, and this is what's especially important for Shared Lives Week. It's a chance to build genuine dialogue and relationships, having real two-way conversations which strengthen your relationship with your network. It's more equitable, and people will value your organization more and their relationship with it. And finally, another key kind of attribute it's got is that it enables you to use mixed media, so images, text, video, audio, and in some cases linking to files, surveys, and external websites. Again, it's just more tools in your arsenal and can help you liven things up. why should you not use it? So obviously we've created this webinar and this resource, and it's pretty obvious that we think that you should be. But just before you invest the time in it, it's worth keeping a couple of pitfalls in mind. And the first and probably most important is that it is an investment of time. You need to be prepared to spend time creating posts, scanning what's going on, and responding to. So responsiveness is absolutely key to strengthen that two-way dialogue we're talking about. And all of that takes time. The second key point is probably that everything that carries your reputation, your organization's name and branding, carries a risk as well as an opportunity to its reputation. So you need to make sure that what you're saying and how you're saying it and how you look are on point, especially if more people are starting to see it, which is what we hope. Just like in real life, people can obviously, get nasty, but online, sometimes when people aren't face to face, people can possibly feel a little bolder to kind of say what they wouldn't really say in real life. And finally, although great steps have been taken to improve this, there is still the potential for there to be fake profiles. So despite the efforts of verification from the main social media platforms, there's no automatic way of ensuring that an account is actually who they say they are, although that has become a lot better. So they're just some things to kind of keep in mind. So before you start using social media, there are a couple of things that it's quite important to have in place. And this is covered in much more detail in the resource that you receive afterwards, but just briefly, it's worth thinking about the different platforms that you want to use. There are hundreds, maybe even thousands of different platforms and channels out there. They all work in different ways and have different strengths and weaknesses. A lot of them have unusual gimmicks, but the most popular in the UK are Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Reddit, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. The absolute main fact that you need to consider in choosing which platform to use is who are your audience and what are they most likely using. So although social media networks are reluctant to share official audience data, UK government research says that Facebook has over 3.4 million users over the age of 65 in the UK. We know the majority of shared lives carers are in the upper age bracket, and it's just a no-brainer really that Facebook is the best way to reach them. There is obviously an argument which says that we want to recruit younger shared lives carers, and it's a potential weakness in the sector. So that's why we at Shared Lives Plus are starting to experiment with platforms like Instagram. But this resource is going to cover Facebook and it's going to cover Twitter. Now, Twitter has a slightly different demographic. Only 10% of over 65s are on Twitter, but it's a different type of platform, and there are different types of conversations that happen on there. There's greater discussion of political and policy issues, and it's important for the shared life sector to have a voice there too. Another absolutely super important element is being able to fit in your social media activity within a broader communications plan. Now a communications plan is beyond the scope of this workshop, but there are some elements that you should have in place before you start using social media, and that is a concrete understanding of your purpose, the purposes for why you're reaching out, having good messaging and good stories to hand to use, a good tone of voice and a clear and distinct tone of voice and identity, and then finally the commitment of resources and staff to be able to actually do it. And that could be just as little as 10 minutes per day and one dedicated staff member. It's also quite important, in fact very important, I would say, whether you're embedded with your local authority and you're a local authority based scheme or not, that you need to check in with your local authority communications team to share your plans and get their input. That's important for consistency, important to get everyone on the same page and make sure that everybody is aware of and buys into the plan. Keep coordinating with your local authority comms team can also help you add a capacity and reach and boost your efforts. So, it's likely that they'll already have quite a significant social media presence, And if they can help you get your messages out, it's going to get seen by a lot more people. But also to consider is local authorities often have rules and processes they adhere to about communications. That includes things like language and tone of voice, and also might include considerations of things like timing of posts and awareness of the wider local authorities communications activity, so that you avoid duplicating work or conflicting within existing campaigns. So, you know, if there's a bin strike or something important that's going on, and the council are planning important communications about that on a particular day, that might not be the best day to launch your big recruitment campaign. Creating a workflow is important, and like I said, assigning proper resource to this. So it could just be a matter of 10 minutes a day, and maybe creating a rota. So having different members of the team responsible for social media in different ways can help you share the burden, add capacity, and also with different people, it can also help keep the energy and momentum and sort of harness the diversity of the personalities and the voices in your team, which can make your post more lively and interesting. And we'll discuss that more later. Finally, obviously, it's worth thinking about the way that you communicate, but wouldn't really want to overthink this. And, you know, a lot of you, we've seen the way you kind of talk about your services is great already, full of like personality. It's nice and informal. And yeah, we want to be able to retain that that kind of that human liveliness and voice. So moving on now to the business end of this workshop, which is all about using social media. And in this section, we're going to be laying out clear steps to get the message, the basics of social media strategy in place. And these will, when you follow them, ensure that all the schemes have start to grow your audience and improve the content to a good base level. So we're going to cover fully completed Facebook and Twitter profiles, making sure each post meets basic criteria, curating content, which is a fancy way of saying retweeting and sharing other posts, and creating, finally, branded image is in Canva, which is a great free tool. So the first step is creating a profile from scratch, fully completed Facebook and Twitter profiles. Now, we're going to start with Facebook, and the key thing to know about this is that in order to create a Facebook page, which is what you're all going to be able to do hopefully by the end of the session, and which you need to do because your scheme is an organization and not a person, to be able to create a community or business page, you must use or create a personal profile to be able to operate the page. It's just the way Facebook works. It might be something that gets phased out in the future, but for now, you can't just create a page from scratch. You've got to be a person to be able to operate it. So I am going to now try to talk you through this in real time. I have had some trouble with this because I've done it so many times in the practice that I think maybe Facebook and Twitter are getting suspicious. But I'm going to use my colleague and friend, Nick Gordon, who's also on the call, details to hopefully create profiles from scratch. He's going to send me through the verification code, and we should be able to talk you through it step by step. So I'm just about to share my screen with you, and hopefully you'll be able to see shortly what I'm seeing. So, right, I've shared this now. Can everybody see it? Brilliant. So, the first step, you need to input the email address you're going to use to set up your profile. So I'm going to be using Nick's. Or actually, it's been
So this is when you're setting up a completely new profile.
Yeah, many of you will already have one of these, but it's worth, I would say, even if you've got a personal account, it's worth setting up a professional one to keep it kind of separate and just having it as your work Facebook profile. So you input your first name, second name, your email address or your phone number, and selecting your date of birth. Nick, I'm just totally making up your birthday. I know I should probably know it, but I don't, mate. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
I thought I'd overestimated it, mate. Right. So you can, obviously, you need to select your gender as well, I think. I think it forces you to do that. So I'm going to now sign up. So just take a look over, just briefly before I do it, just take a look over these elements because that's everything that you need to have filled in. And now you need to sign up. Once you've done that, whether you inputted your phone number or your email address, you'll receive a code, which is a verification code, which is basically a way of proving that you are who you say you are. So Nick, I don't know if that's come through to you yet.
It hasn't yet. Should it come on a text?
No, sorry, I've used your email address rather than
email.
Your phone. Yeah.
Okay, hang on.
And it may have gone into, because it's your work one, there's a chance it might have gone into draft to spam or junk.
Oh, okay, hang on a sec. This all works perfectly in the warm-up. Oh, here we go. I'll read it out to you, hey?
Yeah, please do.
In style 14771.
Okay, so input that.
Came through as an email. Just
yeah, it might be easier to do it via phone, and it probably is. I don't know why I did this now, but so you just click continue once you've entered the code. Right, so success. That's brilliant. It's slowly working, so I'm not going to bother with creating a shortcut. I'm also not going to bother adding any friends for now because we just want to set things up. So when you're adding a picture, it's probably worth just doing this basic step to kind of get your profile set up. So I'll choose this moody one of myself from on the back of the bus last year. I don't know why that's not worked.
Said it was too small.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, it doesn't matter anyway, because you don't actually need this. You barely need to fill out any information about your personal profile once you've set it up. The main thing is that you want to use this to create a page. So whatever point you are on Facebook, once you've created a profile, you'll always have this left-hand column available to you. Now, to set up a page, you want to go to this little icon that says Pages with the orange flag next to it. Click on that. In the top right-hand corner of your screen, there's the instruction to create a page. Click on that. Now, I'm hoping this works and that Facebook doesn't suspect me of trying to do anything funny, which it was yesterday. But if it does do that, then all the instructions here are all completed in the resource that you can look at later. So I'll be able to talk you through them if I can't, even if I can't show you them. So it's worth, I think, you selecting yourself as a business or brand, because there are certain features about those pages which enable you to be able to list your opening hours, and there are certain features that allow you to receive inquiries in a structured way. There is argument to be able to create yourself as a community or public figure, because you do want to create a community, and technically you're not really selling anything over your page. But I think because you're a professional organization, I would recommend that you select business or brand. So you click Get Started. And let's imagine we're setting up a brand new Shared Lives scheme. So you'd input in page name the name of your scheme. So my one is going to be Shared Lives. Let's call it Shared Lives Wave a Tree. It makes you select a category, and unfortunately there is no social care category. So there were a couple of different categories that you could use, but the most relevant one I found is disability service. There is also mental health service and like physical health care, but I think this is probably the thing that matches us most closely. I'm going to add the Shared Lives Plus address and postcode, but these are the bits that you have to fill out. You don't actually have to fill out your phone number, but you do need to put in your address, the city you live in, the city that your scheme's in rather, and the postcode. So this is the moment of truth now. I really hope it lets me do this. Once you've filled out all those fields, and just have a scan of them quickly again now so that you know what you need to do, and then click continue. Right. Oh yes, thank goodness it's worked. Oh, I'm so pleased about that because it wasn't working yesterday. Right, now then, there's a checklist here of things that your scheme profile page needs to include, and we'll be going through them step by step now. So the very first thing is to upload a profile picture. I'm going to upload, what shall I upload? Right, for me, I'm going to just upload this picture from my holidays. But for your scheme, it's important that you upload your logo as your profile picture. So upload that. It's also important to upload a cover photo, which is the image that kind of tops your page and gives it a nice rounded off appearance. And the most important thing I would say, the criteria for choosing one, I would say, should always be a photograph of a good match from your scheme, and it needs to be a landscape photograph. So I'm going to use
it's really important to get ones where people are smiling or active, doing something together. So there's kind of, it captures a moment rather than them particularly being posed or sat on the sofa somewhere. Make it a kind of moment where you can see the connection between the two people, because that's what Shared Lives is about.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit more about creating good images and how to get the best images in a bit. We've got the this is a feature of the business page, which allows you to take bookings through your page. Now, I'd recommend we don't do that, because obviously anyone who wants to become a Shared Lives carer and anybody who wants to use the service goes through a different channel. So we'll skip that. Not now. So, for some reason, it's not actually let me, it didn't actually accept my initial name for the scheme, but it doesn't matter because we can change it here now. So on your checklist of things that you need to have for the fundamentals of a good page is obviously your profile picture, your banner image, then you need your page title, and you can click on that here, or you should be able to. Right, maybe not. So instead, sorry, I went through that a bit quickly. Just to go back,
it would be worth looking at the Shared Lives Plus Facebook page for a good Shared Lives image, because obviously these images aren't really about Shared Lives.
Yeah, but we need to be able to go through this. We need to be able to go through this process from scratch, so I can show where you would edit your information. So when you've got your profile page set up here, if you edit page info, on the top right, this is where you will go to edit anything about your profile page appearance, and it's important that you complete a couple of the fields here. So if you click on edit your page info in the top right, it's important here in description to add a description of what your service is, who it's aimed at, what Shared Lives is. So we'll just put in here. So you've got a 255 character limit, and you can obviously play around with what you want to say in there, but something like that. Save your changes. It's probably worth adding a contact phone number. In fact, it definitely is, and that can just be your office number. I will add an old phone number of mine. Save the changes. Oh dear, well. Right, you'll need to select your extension here. So right, save the changes, and you need to also input your website. So at the moment, I'll just use the Shared Lives Plus one because my fantasy scheme doesn't yet exist and have its own website. Save changes. Important also, of course, to have a contact email. So it's info@sharedlivesplus.org.uk. And here's your address. And luckily, you can see if when your address is correct, it'll come up on a little Google Map feature as well. I'd say it's definitely worth selecting your opening hours as well, so that people know when they can call and email. So yeah, I'll just select those 9 to 5, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and save changes. Now, I think that means we've set up the page as we want it, although it is still giving me the notification up here, and it's perhaps if there's anything that needs completing that hasn't, you'll see the red notification button up there. So it's worth checking through all these if you've still got that notification, which thankfully is gone now for me, which means I filled in everything I need to fill in, and just checking that you filled in everything that's an essential field. So we've now completed a Facebook profile and a Facebook page. So that's my completed scheme page. Next, we're going to move on to creating a Twitter profile, which is a shorter and easier process, you'll be pleased to know, because we don't need to create a personal profile to be able to operate an organizational page, an organizational profile. So I'm going to go to twitter.com up here, and then we're going to click sign up. The name of your account should be the name of your scheme and not of yourself, because this is what's going to show up. Enter in your phone number for the same reason as with Facebook. It needs to be able to authenticate who you are. So I'm going to use my helpful assistant Nick's phone number. And Nick, this should be a bit easier now. Than doing it by email. So I'm just going to grab your phone number from here. 7392 313 503. And then we're going to go next. We're going to skip these steps for now, because this is basically offering you the chance to follow people and select personalized ads, but we don't need to worry about that for now. Click next. Now, this is just to confirm that you've got your name and the contact number right. So I have, so I'm going to sign up. And now a verification code should have gone to Nick's phone.
Hang on.
And just like with Facebook, you need to input that code here.
So the code is 344432.
Need to come up with a password. Well, it said something went wrong, which was disconcerting, but it's actually gone right. I've managed to create a profile page on Twitter. So this is the first step. We're on our way. So again, like with Facebook, there are a couple of basics that we need to have checked off to be able to start operating properly. A couple of basic info and some other stuff. So as Phoebe suggested, I'm just going to perhaps take some more appropriate images from the Shared Lives Plus page. So I'm just going to download that. Then I'll also take the header image.
Marilyn's just asked if she can use the scheme phone number to set up a Twitter profile, and yes, that's what we recommend, so that people can use your phone number publicly.
Definitely, it's certainly, and I'd recommend it being your home, your main office line. So now, when we want to update our profile, this column on the left will always appear when you're on Twitter. This will always exist now since the latest update of Twitter. So if ever you want to get onto your profile and edit it, you click your profile here. This is what we've got. Now, we want to set up our profile. So it's dead easy, and it takes you through it step by step. And now to add a profile image, you just click the camera icon in the middle of this gray circle. And we're going to use the Shared Lives Plus one. You can resize it, zoom in and out, but that fits nicely, actually rather snugly. Then click next. So we're happy with that. Then we're going to pick a header image. And just like with Facebook, this now needs to be a rectangular landscape image. And you can see that the space is actually quite narrow. So the longer and thinner, probably the better. As with Facebook, we really recommend a nice shot of a match from your scheme. So, right. So we're happy with our profile picture and our header. We click next. Now, your bio. So again, this is an important element of your profile to describe what you are and what you do in a line. So
Yeah, so we've got a few in the chat. So Andy's asking, I assume for branding it would be best to use the same logos and pictures for both Facebook and Twitter. And that's probably true. I'd say the profile pictures I would keep them the same and use your logo for that. For the photos, you might want to use different ones for different reasons. If you're being really specific about the way that you're using Twitter and Facebook, but I think we generally use the same because then it gives greater brand recognition, like you're saying. But perhaps for the Facebook one, you might want it to be a little bit more casual or a little bit more friendly. You could probably get away with a more informal shot, whereas on Twitter, you might want to make it more social carey focused, something that isn't going to make people go like it's too informal, because perhaps people are more professional on Twitter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
certainly.
just put a post as well saying that's the case around Twitter being very much a sort of professional audience. So absolutely, just bear that in mind in terms of your content and messaging and the images that you use.
Thanks, guys. Great. So we've now successfully managed to set up both a Facebook and a Twitter profile. So well done to me for doing that. And we're now going to start using it. I'm going to launch into really being able to start creating good posts. And in this section, we'll be given some general guidelines, but then there are also a checklist of basic criteria, certainly at this basic level, that will really enhance what you're posting, and will make sure that all of your posts are at a good base level, that will help you kind of grow your following and start to really engage people. So creating a good social media post, like all writing, writing for your communications and promotional needs, it does require creativity and precision. In the resource section that we're going to share with you, we've actually created a writing guide for Shared Lives Plus, which was aimed for our organization internally, but will probably provide you some useful pointers to think about how to write in a shared lives context. Generally speaking, it's absolutely paramount that you play to the innate kind of strengths of Shared Lives, which is that it's person-centered and it's a humane service, which is all about relationships and compassion and really like inspiring outcomes. So there's a great opportunity, really, unlike perhaps some other kind of public service style communications, to really write kind of in a vibrant, lively, even quirky way. And what I can't stress enough is that we all know Shared Lives as a sector is too small for how amazing the outcomes are and its quality, but it is incredibly rich in beautiful stories of people's lives being transformed for the better. These stories need to be the lifeblood of all your communications. Our Shared Lives Plus communication strategy is very much a story-led one. And I don't know if some people on the call were at conference in 2019, but we also led a workshop there about storytelling for shared lives. And we've made this available too in the resource section of this digital toolkit. So that, combined with the writing workshop and the basic steps that we're going to learn now, should really give you a good grounding in how to create compelling and good posts. And as part of the resource as well and toolkit, I should mention at the end, we've created some example social media posts which you can cut and paste and use during Shared Lives Week. And you can tweak them as you see fit, and we'd obviously want you to create your own story-led ones to be able to accompany it, but there to kind of get you going basically, and get you started. So the first thing to think about when creating your posts is the purpose of them. So each post needs to have a clear purpose, and you need to know why you're doing it. We mentioned creating a rota for different staff to use social media on different days to ensure good coverage. A rota system that could also work well when thinking about what types of posts you want to create and why. So taking a stab at what most schemes' communications goals will be, and especially during Shared Lives Week, they are likely to be recruiting more Shared Lives carers, raising awareness of the service amongst potential people who could potentially use it, sharing important information with your existing carers about an announcement, for example, an announcement about an event, finding something important out from your carer followers by asking a question. And that is really, that's something that social media really gives you a great opportunity to do that other platforms don't, is really like being able to gather intelligence and really listen to your following and your network. And finally, and especially for Shared Lives Week, just simply celebrating the brilliant achievements of the matches in your scheme. So the first three are kind of likely to be more regular, and the last two are probably more, are maybe going to be more ad hoc. But it could be worth setting up a rota where you decide to post, you know, you have one day of the week dedicated to each outcome. As well as the kind of guidance that you'll see on creating good writing for Shared Lives in the resources later, it's important now to think of a specific, some specific rules about posting on social media, which you need to have in place every time you post. And we're going to cover now a checklist and a basic criteria that each post needs to have. So we're going to start with Facebook. And we're going to go through the steps of how to post. So can everybody see the Shared Lives Plus community page here? I'm going to go onto the page that I created, which is called Mister still for some reason. Now, whenever you want to create a post, you click onto your page, and pretty near the top, underneath your cover image, you will always see the option to create a post here. Now, I am going to, as an example, I'm going to go into our toolkit and select one of the example posts that we've created for you to use. And add that text in. So wherever it says write a post, that's where you input the text that you want to write, that you want to post. Right, so it's not letting me cut and paste from my screen for some reason. Very annoying. So I'll just write something now like so you enter your text there and you add a photo and video, a photo or a video. And here I'm going to use an example that we created that we're going to use in Canva shortly. It might take a while for it to load, but it will appear solidly once it has loaded. There are obviously other options here, but we're just talking about the basics for now. So the most important thing is always to have the text and the image that you want. And then we're going to post, click post here in the bottom right. And hopefully now we're on our page. You'll be able to scroll down and see all the posts that you've ever made, with the most recent at the top, which for some reason isn't appearing. I don't know why that is. Well, this obviously wasn't supposed to happen.
Try refresh, maybe.
Yeah, I'm just going to go onto the page again and see. Virgin Media is not my friend. Okay, well, that's quite disappointing. I'm going to try it again. I mean, in every other time I've ever done this, it's worked, and I guarantee you that it will work for you. I don't know whether it's because I've not completed something.
So is this posting on the page, Michael, or on your profile?
You what? Sorry.
Is this posting on your page or your profile?
It's posting on the page because I've got.
That's your profile.
Yeah, that's the page profile. If you look at the top there, I'm going to go through this when we talk about sharing posts in a minute. But if you look at the top line there,
we've just got 5 minutes left actually until 12 o'clock, so might need to see if there are any more questions.
Just see if that'll work.
So if this doesn't work now, it doesn't matter, because I guarantee that when you do it, it is going to work. And I think this is probably to do with the fact that I've created this hollow test page. So in the instructions that you'll receive later, all of those things will be recapped and you'll be able to follow them. So I'm just going to quickly show how to do the same thing on Twitter. So you'll always, in the column that's perennially there on the left-hand side, you'll always have the blue tweet button. And again, you enter your text in the box here and add your image by selecting the landscape icon in the bottom, which is the furthest left of the bottom 4 icons here. There we are. And then when you're happy with that, you simply click tweet. Well, there we go. So that worked on Twitter. So that's pleasing. The basic checklist that you need to kind of think about for all of your Facebook and all of your Twitter posts are that you need an image, ideally of a Shared Lives match, showing them in a positive and a fun light, and try with all your might to avoid stilted shots of people just sitting down. Action is key. It's important that we show that people in Shared Lives have new experiences, take part in activities, and that their lives are enriched. So we're going to go through creating branded images shortly on Canva, but for now, it's so important to have a good photo like that to hand. You obviously need to think about.
I think we might have to leave the Canva one for another time and just cover off a few of the questions that have come through, just because we've got just about 3 minutes left. So Willick15 said, do you recommend only using Christian names of the carers and individuals? And I've said I much prefer to use both, especially because it gives it a bit more credibility and respect to those people. I think sometimes we've only used first names when we're trying to protect their identity in some way, but if we've got consent and everybody is happy for their names to be used, then I think using both gives it more respect, like you'd see in a newspaper. We're looking into instructions for Zoom, so they'll come out soon. And then there's a question over facilitators and how to manage access to the page. So you could set up a one person's email that can then be shared amongst other people so that you can all log in, or just give the logins to certain numbers of staff. Yeah, so I think if you share the login details, then you can have multiple numbers of staff.
I agree. There is another way of you could also could set up the page so that it can have a number of different administrators. So the steps that we talked about in creating your personal profile to manage the page, you could arguably have, you know, one of them for each of the staff members that's going to be using it. But you need to establish permissions for that. It can sometimes take time, and I think it's much easier to just give everyone who's likely to use the account the account details.
Great.
Azim had a question as well about what works for teams who have social media accounts. Is it a single staff member or rotating between staff, and what's worked well? I think in my experience, if you've got more than one person who's capable and willing and able to contribute really good content, and it really helps if more than one person can be involved. I think, you know, frequency of messaging on social media is important, because you've got an audience out there and you want them to engage with you, you know, as much as possible. So I think, you know, if you can get a team of at least 2 or 3 people that can cover periods of time when people aren't available and stuff, then that works much better.
I definitely agree with that. And like I said before, there's ways in which it can really boost the kind of energy and the liveliness of your communications with different people posting. Some people there's some accounts that like to sign off actually with the initials of the person using, so that when it's a new person coming on to operate the page that day, they might introduce themselves and say, "Hello, it's Nick here. I'll be looking after the account today," and so that people kind of know who's talking and who they're talking to. We don't do that at Shared Lives Plus. We kind of we just post as the organization. But I think that kind of thing tends to work well if you're tweeting or posting a lot over the course of a day. So I think that tends to work quite well with an event. If you're covering an event on Twitter and you kind of wanted to tweet snippets of what people are saying in their speeches at the event or what. So yeah, I've seen someone asking whether we can cover Canva. Yeah, we definitely will cover Canva. It was supposed to be in this session, but with some of the difficulties I had with the profile, it's run over time, which is really unfortunate. But yes, and it is in the resource as well. Step-by-step guides on how to set up your account in Canva and how to create posts in it are included in that.
We'll send that around later today, and it will be in your members account on the website. So have it there.
Along with the other toolkit resources.
Posts on the questions on who has access to the profile. So Janice, you've asked, can anyone write on the Facebook and Twitter profiles? And yes, they can. So once you've set up a profile, then it's like you exist in the social media world and people can start talking to you, and they can send you messages publicly and they can send you messages privately. So that's when you kind of work out how you're going to respond to them and who will be looking at the page on different days.
It is possible to have, it is possible to close the page to comments, but I wouldn't recommend that, because you want to engage with your audience and things, and you should be confident that you can have that conversation publicly and deal with any things that come out.
Well, the whole point of it is to create community, isn't it?
Yeah.
So to connect with people. And there's just
Absolutely.
a question, which I've lost now. Where is it? Our account had to be set up by our local authority comms team. So we only have a few staff who've been set up as administrators. There's no limit to the number of administrators you have. So if you download Twitter or Facebook onto your phone, you can log in with the same details as anybody, the other people who have access. That's what we do here. So hopefully that's answered your questions. If there's any things that we haven't covered in this, what seems a very short time, please email press@sharedlivesplus.org.uk. We'll draw it to a close now because I know we said it would just be an hour. and we'll set up another session to cover.
Yeah, it looks, I should probably say, Phoebe, would you agree? I think we probably need at least, if we were going to have only one more session, then I think we should definitely at least have 2 more now, and probably 3 if we're planning to keep them to an hour at a time, because we've got good stuff here around the curation of content and creating Canva images, which are supposed to be part of the basic skill set. So I think we'll have a chat and set up the continuation basically of this webinar, and then we're going to have a more advanced one as well. So
thank you everyone for coming.
Keep your eyes peeled. Yes, thanks.
And yeah, keep us posted with any questions. Thank you very much. We'll end the meeting now.
Thanks, guys.